Hi, Oakley.
Hey, Omar.
Welcome to another Oakley and Omar Zoomcast. Hello, Mary and Trisha. Thank you for joining us today. How are you feeling today, Oakley?
I'm feeling pretty good today. I've had a good week of just settling into a rhythm, landing back in Denver, getting some good sleep. So I'm feeling.
Well, we might talk about this a little later in our Zoomcast, depending on how the conversation flows. But I got this, I think it's called a gua sha, and it massages your skin. And I did it last, was my shoulders just like, that's what I've been looking for. I think in some ways with COVID, my normal wellness practices of going to my Russian steam bath, the Thai massage, all the sort of things that I used to enjoy and love, I haven't been able to do. And so it's really exploring these new tools, get to that place of wellness.
I mean, it sounds like we all need one of those. Can we put a link down below? We can all do this. We'll stay for an hour after this Zoomcast and we'll just all massage our tension out of our bodies with
Gua sha. Yeah, at least that's how I'm pronouncing it. So for today, we'd love to just in our one-word check-in is how are you feeling? And so in this moment, so many things happening every week, every day, just in this moment, just take a pause. How are you feeling? And feel free to access your mic or share in the chat.
Awesome.
I love that.
Thanks, Trisha. Oh, thanks, Brian. Hopeful.
Mary, do you have something for us?
Yeah, optimistic.
Right on.
I like it.
Some good energy today.
There's some great energy today.
Right.
I'm feeling it. Awesome, optimistic, hopeful. Marty, if you're just joining us, we're doing a one-word check-in. And so how are you feeling in this moment? So please access your mic if you'd like to share.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. There we go.
Good. Welcome.
Yeah.
Good. All of it is welcome, whether it's the optimism, the awesomeness, or the overwhelmingness.
Totally.
It's all here.
It's awesome to name what's right here, right? This is great.
So in this session today, we really wanted to kind of open it up. We've had a month of talking about the vision series, from your North Star to the power of your mind to flow state. And then Oakley has added some practices. If anybody had a chance to practice the alternate nose breathing that she introduced us to, the onomatopoeia, or she had a more technical name for it.
I think onomatopoeia is a word that's, what's the definition of that?
It's a word that sounds like the word.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I did it this week several times, and it was fascinating to realize how frequently I had one nostril blocked. And it was a surprise to me because I did it at least once a day, and probably 3/4 of the time I had one nostril that wasn't open. And so it really made me more attuned to how even is my breath if one nostril isn't even working.
Yeah.
And it was a fascinating sort of insight into breathing that I wasn't expecting.
On that note, Omar, James Nestor is his name, who just published the book Breathe. Is that what it's called? I'm looking at it now. I'll get it for you guys. And he actually goes really deep into the history of the breath and how we're all walking around breathing wrong. And but it's not it's not just a tale of like what we're all doing wrong and we've evolved out of being connected to ourselves. He leads this beautiful journey on reconnecting to the breath, feeling more energized through breathing correctly, and he talks about what's correlated with each nostril being blocked, things like that. So you can really dive deep. Let me grab it for everybody. It's right here. Hold on. I'm doing a big reach.
Hold on. Oakley's off screen, folks.
And I'm back.
Be careful. Okay.
And here it is.
Breathe. James Nestor.
Yep.
All right.
Everybody's talking about it.
We'll have to start creating a book list somewhere.
The Double
that would
O
be-
Book Club?
Yeah, the O2 Book Club.
O2 Book Club. Awesome.
How did other folks do on this week's homework? Did anybody else try the alternate breathing? Go ahead and access your mic.
I haven't been doing the other sessions, but I've been taking classes over 20 years in yoga, and I'm familiar with the alternate breath. And I have actually been doing it.
Trisha, I saw you reaching to access your mic.
Thanks, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught by my pain management doctor to do that,
No kidding.
to access endorphins, to get natural pain relief.
That's awesome.
So I haven't done it for quite a while, but it gives me quite the head rush, and but it accesses those endorphins really quickly. It's beautiful.
That's so cool.
So
Thank you for that.
yeah,
That's great.
sure.
Yeah. Super duper endorphin booster. That's
Anybody else try the alternate breathing? Or any other of the micro practices? But we had fire breath. I remember right before I went into a 7-day fast and meditation at the beginning of June, I was talking to Oakley, and I was like, I've got like 3 or 4 different meditations that I want to experiment with. You know, should I try to pare it down? And she's like, no, try all of them. In fact, are you doing chanting? I was like, no, I wasn't including chanting as one of my meditations. And she's like, add that one too. And so, you know, and so I think it's just amazing how one thing, just breathing, can sort of show up in so many different ways. In fact, I use Insight Timer because I love their timer for the different kinds of meditations. And they have over 55,000 different meditation practices on Insight Timer. And so I thought that was just such a great kind of
It's so amazing.
symbol of all the different ways that we can breathe.
It's so amazing to just think about how many paths there are to the top of the mountain. It just doesn't matter which one you get on, you know, just hop on, try a bunch of stuff, commit to the things that work for you. And if you really commit with passion to the things that work for you, you'll get to a new place in your life and in your consciousness. It just is how it is, because as we talked about last week, whatever we put our attention on is what we create, you know? So we also talked about the box breath. That's the other.
That's right. That was the other one. So after a month of talking about vision, again, from, you know, the power of the North Star, which is sort of setting a goal, to the power of your mind, which is we have a more choice and agency in how we show up, to last week's conversation around the flow state, which was that dance between surrender and self-mastery. Today, Oakley and I wanted to just open the conversation up with you, and really either something that resonated in this month's practices or just something that is else like top of mind for you.
Yeah. Any deep questions, surface questions, or thoughts also that are on your mind? We just want to hear. And we have tons of them for you.
Meditation and chanting really helped me a lot. Meditation and chanting I've been doing regularly with a Buddhist group from Arizona since just before the bug, before quarantine. And the quarantine, I call it, because it was like quiet time. You know, we all had to take a moment and be quiet, and so the earth could heal. And sorry, I missed a few classes, so I don't want to jump in too much.
You're good. You're doing great. I love it. Can I ask you a question, Trisha?
Of course, so.
Can you tell us what meditation and chanting does for you specifically? Like, give us some, like, bring us into what it does for you.
It helps calm me, center me, and it's in Pali. It's a Tibetan, ancient Tibetan language, but I also have the chanting book in English in Pali, and it goes back thousands upon thousands of years with the Buddha, and I'm still just a baby at it, you know, just baby learning. And I do it. I also have a Zoom class with the Buddhist group, with the temple, the Wat, and it helps me to stay centered and focused, and also calm, very much more thoughtful, and sending loving kindness for everyone and every living being, born and unborn, on planet, and wanting to be born in all 10 directions. And we do that regularly, and it opens you up. Even the difficult people in our lives, you know, we send loving kindness to them, and it makes a difference. There went one of my difficult people at times, and so
Real talk.
Real talk. That's truth, and speaking truth here. And it just, I do it a lot outside in my zone, I call it, and I'm in a covered outside patio space, and so rain, snow, shine. Well, it doesn't snow in Texas much, but it just really, I've got a friend involved that I've made friends through the group, and the Watt's been closed because they're in Tucson, Arizona. They do it through Facebook too, and it really just helps me to bring myself and have the awareness, and also to be able to do better, be more focused, and do a better job when I'm doing Reiki healing.
Alois, you're in Texas.
Yeah, I am.
And I love it that you're participating in a group in Arizona, and we're here, you know, at Oakley's in Denver. I'm here in Los Angeles. And I think that is one of the unique aspects of this moment right now, is just how, you know, we talk about I love it, you said, Trisha, quarantine. And in some ways there also should be a sort of a quarantine space, right? That there's been this change in our relationship to time, but there's also this change in our relationship to space that allows us to kind of connect in new and different ways.
Exactly. And also, go ahead. I'm sorry, Oakley, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Trisha.
I have also in another group, an art group, it's called Determined to Shine. And that I found through Facebook, and I've been doing that since April. And it's a like meditation, guided meditation, realization, and we art about all sorts of those guided meditation things that come to us in our guided meditation. And I get to have another group this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And so it's so much fun. I started out with paper plates and magazines and stuff from the recycle bin because I didn't have art supplies. And then all of a sudden, you know, you speak of bringing manifestation, realization, bringing the authenticity into, all of a sudden friends started giving me art supplies and books and stamps and stickers and pens, and it just started flowing in, and it's been just amazing. And so I'm the lady that they call the lady that started her art journaling with a paper plate and a magazine, a Tupperware catalog.
That's fantastic.
I'll share one day.
That's great. Please do bring us a paper. Bring us something next class.
Okay, yeah.
Great. You know what I'm really struck by, Trisha, which resonates for me so deeply, is the way that you keep talking about community. You know, you have these groups and this sense of connection and this sense of togetherness in your pursuits, in your focus.
Mhm.
And I think that this time that we are on the planet, in this country, but really internationally, like as a global community, feeling connected with like-minded people is more important than ever, you know? And so I just love how you're initiating that for yourself. I had a really fun weekend with my international spiritual community that I've studied with for 20 years. And we had a program that was supposed to be in Tokyo, Japan this past weekend, but nobody flew to Tokyo. And so we all were on Zoom. And I have to tell you, there was a sense of togetherness globally that was even more powerful than when I have been in person with everybody, because that's wonderful. You can look around, you say, oh, we're all here together, which is unbelievable and glorious, right? But to look at the screen and see hundreds of people from all over the planet at all times of day and night dancing together. We had a DJ come on at the end. We're all
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so fun. And knowing, you know, who DJ'd was DJ Soul Rising, who's our
That's
open.
awesome.
Yeah. And so I saw my friends in Tokyo dancing. I saw my friends in India. I saw my friends in Paris. I saw my friends in New Zealand, all of them dancing. And here I am in my office right here in Denver, Colorado, also dancing. And I knew that in this moment, in real time, my bestie was also dancing in her living room in New Zealand, and my other girlfriends. It was so trippy and fun. It was so fun that we're all connected. And then I think what I love even more about this is just seeing this grid of light, you know, that we're all connected. We're all connected through this field of, you know, energy, this quantum field, and knowing that we're putting our intention and our mindset into this grid, right? And feeling all connected because we can support each other even when we're not together, right?
Can you talk a little bit more about that quantum field, Oakley? Because I feel like
Yeah.
that's one of those words or phrases that we're like, we're all connected. But
Yeah.
to say like, no, we're actually all connected in this like quantum field, I think has like, you have actually specific intention and meaning behind those words that I think I'd love to just hear more about.
Talk about. I think that I almost want to get like a PhD in this because I geek out so hard. I want to go back to school and study like the metaphysics behind all of this, right? Like I just want the science so much because I understand it on a spiritual level. So the quantum field there is something called the field at this point, right? That's coming into science that they're like, wait a second. I'll speak it how I speak it and then I'll explain it. There is this grid, right, of energy, of sound, light, and vibration, of a magnetic field that we're all tapped into, right? That we can't get out of it. It's like you're in the spider web, I'm in the spider web, you're in the spider web, you're in the spider. We're all in the same network. So if I'm tugging, at some point you're going to feel this tiny thing across on the other side of the world. Now, I'm saying that metaphorically, right? But I really do mean that we all have this electromagnetic field. The earth has an electromagnetic field, and they all intertwine and they all interplay, and they're all nothing is separate. Now, if I think about my hand, right? My hand is made, it looks solid, it is dense, right? Like, obviously. If I cut it, it bleeds, right? There are bones, there's tissues, it's separate from my computer. But if I go into this hand on a scientific and metaphysical level, I start to see atoms and molecules, and I start to see them all like floating in space. And there's space between everything. There's space between everything, and every cell has a little electromagnetic field. And so, actually, this hand, when put under that sort of lens, can be broken down to actually not be solid at all, right? It's just that the molecules are vibrating more slowly and more closely together to create the sense of density. But the fact that it stops here is not really true, right? Like, the quality of these molecules stop here, but there are molecules here in the air, and they keep going and they keep going all the way to the door, and then the door shifts, and then it keeps going and it keeps going, right? So there's this sense of like this soup of molecular vibration that we all live in, and the molecular vibration just shifts its quality from high frequency, low frequency, faster, slower, to create this third dimensional reality where we think things are solid and not solid.
That's what so if you go to NASA's website, it'll say, you know, there's hundreds of billions of planets in the Milky Way, and then there's hundreds of billions of galaxies. And with all of that physical matter that you were talking about with your hand, Oakley, 95% of what exists in the universe is not this matter. And that's on NASA's website, and they call it dark matter or dark energy, and they literally have no lens, like there's no microscope powerful enough to actually see that 95% that exists in the world. And so that, like, to me, like, it's not just metaphorical, right? It is actually something very tangible, but how obsessed we are on that 5%, on the matter that is visible to us. And so I think part of, you know, taking this conversation from community, you dancing, you know, with friends around the world, is that all of a sudden we're actually much more connected than we can imagine. It's only then when these things are sort of revealed to us in unique ways that we sort of pause and be like, wow, okay, I'm not just sort of this little atom bouncing out by myself.
Totally. I think you can really see it outside of ourselves. So if you look up into the night sky and you see stars, maybe this is different for you, but for me, I never think of a star as completely solid. Like, it has particles of light that come off. Those particles of light travel like millions of years, you know, we can't see it, but the light keeps going, right? And then other stars shine their light. So they're touching, and they're in this dark matter soup, right? Where the quality of the matter changes if it's a star, and then it keeps going into the soup. So everything's connected. I think it's easy to see that in the galaxy. It's easy to be like, wow, stars are amazing. But Neil deGrasse Tyson, my science crush, right? Came along and told all of us, you know, non-scientists, that stars in the sky have the same molecular composition as our human body. Now, wait a second, right? Like, let's pause on that. So I see Trisha like yelling, like, what? Yes. So if we break it down, there's the same percentages of nitrogen, oxygen, water, all of that stuff in a star that is in our physical body. So that's something to start to think about, right? Is to contemplate ourselves as these constantly evolving human forms here on Earth. But when we look at a star, we know that's never stagnant. A star never stops evolving. Right? It's born and then it keeps going.
I can't help but look at the Zoom tiles and just imagine that we're each of these stars that are kind of coming together. And, you know, each of these Zoomcasts is unique. It really depends on who shows up in this time and in this space. And depending on who shows up, this conversation can go in lots of different ways. And so I don't know, I think that to me is sort of what's special about it. I would continue, whether I see Lisa's shared in the chat, yes, we are. What else, has come sort of in this conversation, either now or over the last month, that we talk about vision and how we are manifesting these things in our lives in very tangible ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Trisha, unmute or write in the chat.
Access your mic.
Access your
Yes,
mic.
okay. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I learned that since I came to Texas. Yes, ma'am, and sir. You must say that always, no matter what. By the way, Oakley, I'd love to catch up and get together for coffee. I'll be traveling to Denver next month.
Send me a little email. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah, that'll be fun to just, okay, back on topic. Sorry, had to share. I'm excited. Haven't traveled in almost 9 years. Anywhere outside the metroplex of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Wow. Okay. We are energy. I look at it as rather, soup. I think of what my mother used to make, all kind of stuff, things I didn't like to eat. But I look at it this way, as energy cooked carrots, not cooked carrots, but as we're all energy beings, and that we all radiate energy, and like auras, the word aura, and I can see your aura, and I can see Oakley's aura, and I can see Omar's aura. By the way, you're glowing brightly today.
Thank you.
And so
I think it must be my gua sha. I think I recommend.
Yeah,
this.
it must be you that relaxed. I'll relax. But yes, that everything, we're interconnected through our energy fields, and also that we're energetically connected on planet through Gaia, Mother Earth, and in the atmosphere, because we radiate just as much as we are stars. We are beings of light. Does that make sense?
I would love to I'd be curious, like a term like aura, again, sort of gets used and seeing colors. Anybody else see auras through colors or colors through auras? Share in the chat, or because it's one of those things that I feel like some people see, some people don't. And, and this becomes where, it's really sometimes difficult to be in community because people see such different things. And so how do we find some of the common language? This is what I love, that Oakley could talk about the metaphor of this force field, and you can go to NASA's website. And to me, like, okay, two very different ways of looking at the world. You got NASA and all these engineers looking at the world in one way. And then you have, somebody who's deep into meditation and thinking about the metaphysics of that experience. And they're in some ways describing something very similar, which then sort of makes me feel like, okay, two very different ways of looking at the world, but there's some commonality. And then it becomes, at least for me, easier to sort of embrace that. Auras is one of those ones like, okay, what is that?
Mm-hmm. I'm looking right now for the makeup of the stars with the human body.
It's an energy field. We all have energy fields. I look at auras. I see auras, and I see lots of things that people go, But no, I learned when I was a child to be able to see auras. I knew what I did a word to what I was seeing. It's a light field around you. Sometimes it's colorful. Sometimes it's mostly just a brightness, like a glow around you, like your lamp behind you. Like you're glowing like that lamp behind you, Oakley. And Omar's glowing so lovely too, because he's glowing in a way because his gua sha's been calmed. He's squashed his jaw, and he's just on a low, his frequency's high, but he's glowing in a different sort of way, in different colors. I don't see rainbows necessarily always, but I see it in like light source. And so you can train your eye to see them, but there's also, sorry, the neighbor, the arts also, I think a certain sense of sixth sense about it.
I can agree with that. I've also heard, Trisha, thank you so much for all of this that you're sharing. Heard, but in my own training, have learned that when we bring our own frequency up through this work that we're talking about, you know, through the breath work, through intention setting, through putting our focus on our own alignment in our lives, we raise our frequency, right? And as we raise our frequency, we can start to see what's vibrating at a higher frequency, and light is vibrating at a very high frequency. So there are days in my meditation where if I raise through different practices and feel very sort of expanded, I can begin to see the light around all the things, right? The trees and the people and like that. And some people just have it naturally, but you can train yourself into it. And some people, it's not important for your wiring in this incarnation, you know?
That's what I love. Lisa says she doesn't see the auras, but she feels the energy. And that to me is one of the beautiful things, is that how we perceive the world is so important. Right? So if you're a visual person and that's how you really understand the world, or if you're more of an empath and emotions is what drives you, or if you're more physical and it's like a very experiential physical experience. I think that's where I sort of fall on the sort of spectrum, is that I have a very physical sort of sense of the world. And that's why I love Qigong, is because when I do the movements, I can feel the energy in my hands. I can't see anything. I've tried. But like really that sort of, and then this is where having collective conversations is then so fascinating, because then the empath is contributing something different than the person who is vibrating at a different level because they're more physical, and it's the density of that experience. Or there's some people who are more ephemeral, and they're sort of kind of getting it from a different place.
I love that, Omar. And I think let's break down the auric body for a minute. In my own life, I don't actually use the word aura. I just say esoteric anatomy. I see that, you know, our physical bodies are here, but our physical energy doesn't stop, right? So I can say, this is my anatomy, this is my skin, bones, etc. But as I continue to move out from my physical body, there are still things that can be seen and measured, just not with the naked eye necessarily, right? And so there are the aura, as we call it, or the esoteric anatomy of our bodies, is very complex. It's not only a sphere of light, right? There are layers to it that hold different codes of information, right? So we talk about the pranic body in yoga. Mary, you know this one, right? The pranic body. And the pranic body sits off of our physical body almost like 3 inches like a sock, and it fits. It's kind of like tight, right? The pranic body is actually one of the reasons that when amputees have phantom limb symptoms, right? Where there's like an itch or they can feel a pain, but the limb isn't there. It's because the information is still in the pranic body. So the pranic body fits like a sock, and it's responsible for our sense of life force. When we do all the pranayama, right, breath practices that we've talked about in the last month, that really energizes the pranic body, right? Also, if you're ever trying to quit smoking or something else, alcohol, whatever, there is a way that the pranic body can actually collect some of the molecules from cigarette smoke and stuff like that. So if you're trying to quit or cleanse, that's one of the beautiful reasons that people do cleansing rituals, like using sage to cleanse the aura. It sounds so spiritual, but guess what? It's got a really practical on the ground reality. And these things you just have to try, and some it'll make a difference for some people, others it won't, and that's fine. It's all about subtle energy, really. But belief is
That was
everything.
literally the word that was on my mind, subtle energy and the subtle
Subtle energy.
body. Because I think that's but
That's
it,
it.
like just from like a for lack of better, to like a science point of view, like if we do agree that everything is constantly changing, and I think and that science sort of shows that spiritual sort of community definitely embraces that idea of impermanence, then all of a sudden it's not that leap of faith that somehow there is that sort of, I love it, esoteric anatomy, because in some ways to make it something more concrete is then to deny change, and we know that that is not true, and that we know, like, this is what I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about the gua sha just because I'm so excited about it. Right. So what it does, I don't know if you can see on my shoulder or not, but it's like there's some serious like red marks, and what I loved about it was that there was a tightness there. I felt it, but by rubbing the jade over it, it really was starting to break down the fascia so that the blood vessels can kind of reconnect and blood can move again. And it made visible what was already there. And I think part of it is that we know, like, stress is an abstract. But it can manifest itself physically. And that's, to me, I was like, oh, there I am revealing where I'm holding the stress in my life. And by revealing it, then I can actually sort of breathe energy into it. And by breathing energy into it and breaking down those tissues and those blood vessels that were stuck, I can heal. I mean, that is literally the healing. And so to me, this idea of the subtle energy, and I got to imagine that stress is like, maybe it's a not so subtle energy, right? It's like a very powerful energy, and how we sort of deal and address these things is really, I think, to me, it's just sort of how we continue to create places and spaces for us to find health and healing.
Totally. And continue to understand ourselves. I mean, why not experiment with this notion, this concept that we're talking about? There's not a lot that can be lost from thinking about uplifting your vibration through breath practices and conscious thinking, right? Because for me, you've got the pranic body, then the emotional body, then the mental body. Some schools, flip them. And it keeps going. It keeps going. You've got the causal, then the spiritual. It like, we're just a big cake out there, right?
Cosmic cake.
Just a cosmic cake.
To infinity.
Into infinity. That's it. And and then inside each cake layer, you've got all this other information. So, stress doesn't start in the body. It can start outside of us, not with other people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in our esoteric anatomy, it can begin, right? And so by the time something gets close enough to manifest in our physical body, we've sort of let it go a little bit, a long time. And my journey, which we'll talk about, next month with Lyme disease, is a great example of that. I was in a job that I gave parts of myself away over and over and over. It never happened overnight. It was years of micro extractions of myself, giving it away, not knowing any better. It was a learning, total education, great education, right? And suddenly I was really starting to get sick, and the symptoms came on slowly and all of this kind of stuff. So, there's a journey with chronic illness and, other sorts of illnesses that if we think about where it starts, what that allows for us is just a greater and a deeper access to empowerment to wellness. Right? That's what it is that's what it was for me. I got to look at it, see where I was giving things away and say like, oh, wow, that's what happens when you do that. okay, got it. And I got to reclaim power, reclaim energy, and then also go through very physical treatments for wellness. But now I get to relate to my whole anatomy, physical and subtle, in a totally different way, which keeps me like way healthy and way happy, right?
I threw that in the chat. How are folks reclaiming energy in their lives? I love that. And that's, to me, that's what these practices are different ways that we can reclaim energy. Because if that's what is it? It's energy never, dies, it just changes form, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea, then if we're kind of living and constantly changing, then every moment is a choice as to where is our energy go, right? Which was the beginning of our whole conversation, is that where our attention goes our energy.
Right.
You know, it was fun yesterday. I was had a meta moment because I was doing a guided gratitude practice for a philanthropic group of people, but they had me record it in advance. And so I was watching myself give a guided gratitude practice and then real time chatting. So it was sort of like being in two places at once. And I think that's what this sort of new normal is allowing us, is to like be in multiple places at once and to show up in different ways. But that requires, I think, a little bit more attention to our energy, you know, and I think that's also sort of where we just left the attention economy, right? With Instagram, which was like, okay, all about trying to get noticed. And these practices are really about what are we trying to notice, as opposed to trying to get noticed. How are we noticing? And so that, I think, is really this conversation, is we're learning from each other what we're noticing.
Absolutely. And we're getting the opportunity through all of this, through this new technology, through this quarantine, all of this to gain different perspectives that we would have never been able to have access to before, and different experiences. Omar, you being in two places at once, technically.
Yes.
That's not a mistake. You know what I mean? We're all sort of in training here for like the next kind of quantum leap. And I think that this is modern day alchemy. You know, how do we transform ourselves? Modern day alchemists here.
I love it. Lisa sharing music, exercising, being in the flow, like cooking. Love cooking. My daughter has been deep into like making desserts, cobbler's crisps. Yes, my belly is showing the proof of that pudding. Meditation, journaling, singing out loud with the radio. I just love it. Laughing.
Lisa, these are so awesome. Powerful.
And I love about it is that these are everyday practices. Like sometimes we talk about practices like meditation or yoga, and we kind of like formalize them. What I love about your list, Lisa, is that these are just, every moment is actually a practice. And that's why I love the practice of noticing, is because we can, any moment, how we bring attention to our noticing shifts whatever it is that we're actually doing. And that, you know, that's life.
That's it. I mean, you're essentially, I mean, this is the age old saying, like chop wood, carry water, before enlightenment, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? The only thing we're talking about is perception and noticing. You know, that's it. So cleaning our home, right? It can be a total drag, or we can be so present to it and have a really kind of ecstatic experience, like transforming our home and being these modern alchemists and being like, whew, that was amazing. My home is glowing, you know?
There's this professor, Ellen Anger, I think it's, and she studied mindfulness, and she took service workers in a hotel and just said, okay, be mindful of how you're moving throughout the day. All of them lost weight just from changing their perspective of cleaning a hotel to, oh, I'm actually moving all day and I'm aware of my moving all day. And literally all of them lost weight. Their blood pressure went down. This is a professor from Harvard. I mean, and so that was just changing their attention to what they were already doing. She didn't ask them to do anything else, but just become aware of their moving through the day.
That's incredible. I mean, and fundamentally, you're dropping cortisol, right? Because you're being present.
Yeah.
And cortisol is what produces us to cling on to that weight when we're stressed.
So it's amazing. I love that today we started off on vision. We went through dark matter, dark energy, metaphysical, cake making, esoteric, anatomy, community, time travel, modern day alchemy. I mean, this is one heck of a conversation.
Totally.
Any other sort of things we want to talk about today before we kind of share a little bit about where Oakley and I'd like to guide the conversation for next month? All right. Well, Oakley kind of teed it up. I see Trisha. Access your mic.
Access your mic.
Sorry, I just very sharing today. I just feel that, you know, and going from speaking and feeling everyone in the group that we're having right now in our group chat and in the chat box, and that we are all vibrating also, not only individually. Oh, excuse me.
It's okay. Keep going.
Okay. Individually and, but as one together, we're all glowing and vibrating at a level together while we're Zooming in this class. And it all brings our vibrational energy up.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Trisha. It's one of my favorite things that you're speaking to is this collective upliftment. And this is, you know, in Buddhism, we call it the Sangha, right? And we call it community. There's just so many different names around, you know, in Hinduism, we come and we satsang, right? We come together and we speak of truth, the esoteric truths that are truth today, and they'll be true in 100 years, you know, about light, about love, about consciousness. And that's how we uplift together. We're doing this together.
I love it. It's happening, people.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, we are on the road.
And Lisa mentioned in the chat, I love the homework. And so Oakley and I left this one open today on homework, but one of the things I was thinking about as homework this week, I just joined the board of directors of this nonprofit called Kiss the Ground, which is all about soil regeneration. And they just premiered a movie on Netflix on Tuesday, which was called Kiss the Ground. And it really shows how soil can help us reverse the changes happening to our climate right now. And that carbon really can be stored in our soil in a very different way. So my, you know, unabashed, shameless homework for this week is to invite you to watch, if you have Netflix, Kiss the Ground. It's great. It's narrated by Woody Harrelson, and you know, it really brings both the science and the activism and the people on the ground. One of the folks that is highlighted in the film is Michael Martinez. He's with LA Compost, and he's a mentee of mine who's really helping to build both community in sort of his neighborhoods that he's working in, but also building community in the microbes that he's kind of creating with all the compost.
I love that. I love that.
If you have a chance, dude, that's what it's about. And so if you have also, maybe I should run this by Oakley before sharing, but if you, another homework, I was just thinking about these everyday practices. What is something in your everyday practice that you can sort of bring a different attention to? Or is there a new one, like creating a compost? Just thinking about your food and the amount of food that goes to waste. How could we treat that a little bit differently? And so if you are in a position to grow compost, I invite you to do that. Or if you're already doing one, what other sort of activities can you do that relate to your food and the health of you and the health of our planet?
I love that homework. And you can also check into your city. We just discovered that Denver has a composting program and drops off these beautiful little bins and then comes and picks up the compost and the whole thing. So it's pretty simple and easy over here. So just look into that too if you're interested.
And then the last thing is just for October, Oakley and I are going to really talk about personal journey. And we're going to use each other as a way to really talk about personal journey. I'll get to interview Oakley. Oakley will get to interview me, and then we'll also sort of open it up and, show how, talking about our personal journeys, what our perspective is, how we are framing our lives affects how we live. And so what other intentions and homework and practices can we bring to be our healthiest, most vibrant, awesomeness selves?
It's awesome, Omar. And I think that one of the themes while we're interviewing each other is this reframe of our lives too, right? Like Omar and I will be sharing, but we're going to be sharing stories that, some people could be really knocked down by and other people could be uplifted by, and how we chose our narrative and how we chose the thread that empowered us to continue forward, and that strengthened us and that fed our passion and that fed our interests. So you'll be on this journey with us while we are sharing through this. Yay, Trisha. Yes.
And when we've been disempowered,
Yeah.
I think part of it is this work is not just about the light, but it's also about the shadow. And you can't shake a shadow, but you can sort of figure out where to put the light. And reveal, right? My gua sha, it revealed the sort of the shadow of the stress that was on my shoulders. And like, now I'm like, okay, I can now better breathe into that pain in that space so I can let the stress go. Awesome.
That's
well,
awesome.
Is there anything else, Oakley, or do you have a breath for us today?
I think we should just all end in a kind of collective togetherness, and let's do a little sit together for a moment before we call it a day. So wherever you are, just get comfortable. And even if you're walking around your house, just take a moment and stand, just be still for a moment. Refrain from just moving the body. Close the eyes. Relax the jaw. Relax the shoulders. Relax the belly. Let your butt and thighs and legs grow heavy into your seat. Just take a deep, full-bodied inhale, easy and as best you can. And exhale. Another deep, full-bodied inhale. Easy, and exhale. And I'm going to invite us all now to just connect with intention to the heart space. Just with our intention. And whether you can see it or not, I'll invite you just to visualize, use your imagination and your intention again, to see this beautiful thread of golden light going into the center of our group, where we meet together in this big sphere of light, like a sun. Send your golden light into this collective sun. This sun filled with love, with listening, with evolution and peace, with centeredness and empowerment, and with courage, with acceptance, with harmony. And just take a deep breath in. Allow yourself to simultaneously feed this grid of community while also receiving from it. And allow this beautiful high frequency energy to wash over and through you. And let's all increase the vibration by offering our gratitude now. Our gratitude for being here together tonight. Let's thank ourselves for making this choice. And let's offer our gratitude to one another. Because it's being in the space of togetherness that defines community. And although we are never alone, being connected like this is such a gift and such a joy. So we thank you tonight for this beautiful, beautiful time together. We can't wait to be with you again as we build and expand collectively. Send us emails with questions or comments, and we can't wait to see you. Anything else, Omar?
Thank you, Oakley, for that beautiful meditation. I loved how you brought it all together with the grid. We talked about the field earlier, and then here we are laid out in gallery view in a grid. And to know that this energy is something that you can carry forward for the rest of the week. And then we move into next week and we circle back and see how being connected felt. So, thank you.
All right, everyone. Enjoy your week and your weekend.
Thank you, everybody.